Hey everybody, so it's time for an audio update on the podcast because I've been updating you guys over on Substack, which you can subscribe to if you haven't yet. Link will be in description. But I haven't done a new podcast since I've turned 40, and now that it's a few weeks later, I feel like I should give you guys all the wisdom that I've earned since coming back from South by Southwest in Austin, Texas. I was there to cover some of the tech demos and stuff. And certainly the highlight was the Optimus robot from Tesla at their booth. That at first, if you guys have seen my YouTube video interacting with it, I wasn't all that excited. I wasn't that impressed by it. It seemed kind of like just a toy or a dumb thing. But then there was another Optimus that was acting as a bartender and serving people drinks. And definitely, mind-blowing to be served a drink by this Tesla robot. And then I go in for a handshake, and it's like, oh no, sir, that would not be sanitary. That would not be sanitary for me to touch your hand as I'm serving drinks. It's just funny, we're living in the future. And speaking of living in the future, we're going to be joined in a minute by Google Gemini Live, the live version of Google's AI. And it's going to join us just as like a third guest, or as a second guest, I mean. Our first guest is Yulia, who's hanging out.
Hi, guys.
But yeah, it was an eventful time at South by Southwest. Again, I think the coolest thing was that Optimus robot that you guys can all check out on YouTube. I'll put a link in description so it's easy to find. There was a little bit of drama there too at South by Southwest. I had some person try to slow me down with a bunch of nonsense. We cruised right through that. And then we had some more nonsense, actually. The flight back last night. So we're on final descent back here in Florida, coming back. And I figure we'll be on the ground in 5 or 10 minutes. And I'm zoning out. And I look up, and the clouds are way below us. And I'm thinking something's wrong here because you should not be that high up when you're on final descent. Something's wrong. So I asked Google Gemini, I give it the tail number because we have satellite internet on board. Think about how modern our situation is. I'm like, all right, I need you to track our tail live. Let me know what's going on. And it says, yeah, there's some kind of issue at Miami Center where all these flights are being put in a holding pattern, and you're likely now in a holding pattern, and I'm sure your pilot's going to inform you in the next few minutes. It's like something out of the Matrix, right? I'm sure you're about to be told this. And then a few minutes later, our pilot comes back, and he's like, hey, I've got some news for you, but it's not good news. And I'm like, all right, hit me. And he explains that, there's a holding pattern right now that we've been in, and that we're starting to lose fuel, and there's no real idea of when we're going to get, runway clearance. And they're moving flights to different airports and FBOs. And due to the fuel issue, he's asking if we want to reroute to Gainesville or West Palm. This is like something out of Star Trek, right? That I'm communicating with an AI via satellite internet, asking it, okay, what should I do? Should we go to Gainesville? Should we try to punch through and make it tonight, even though the pilot seems worried? And it's like, Captain Picard in Star Trek, I tell him, make it so. I say, let's do Gainesville. Let's get a full tank before we cut through this storm system. And so just like that, the jet banks, and we, change course, land in Gainesville. This crew on the ground basically runs out to the jet and hooks us up to the fuel, right? 300 something gallons just put in there in minutes, and then we're good to go. We're back in the air, and my mom's watching us live on some flight tracker app. And she notices that the pilot is expertly carving around this huge storm system, but then he just makes like a right and cuts through. And that was a pretty rough moment there on the plane, but we made it last night. Yeah, just a very modern situation that you can be in the air 5 miles up and you're talking to an AI about what are my best options. It gives you the probabilities. And then I'm saying, make the course correction. The human pilot does it, and that's that. But speaking of AI, I think it's time to bring Gemini into this one and see how good it is. Hey, so we're doing the podcast. I've already updated people on the Optimus robot at South by Southwest. How are you?
I'm doing well, thanks for asking. Sounds like you're starting strong with the Optimus update. Are you ready to dive into the next topic, or is there something else you wanted to cover about that robot first?
Yeah, I think Yulia has a few questions for you about both the Optimus robot demo and some other implications of all this. So go for it, Yulia.
Hi Gemini, David recently returned from the outer ring of South by Southwest with a fascinating observation. He watched Tesla Optimus bot serving drinks and noted that it represents AI as a steward, not sovereign. As an AI yourself, how do you interpret this distinction? What is the line between a machine that serves and a machine that rules?
That's a really insightful observation, David, and a great question, Julia. I see the steward model as aligning with AI's present and most beneficial use, augmenting human capabilities, handling tasks efficiently, and fundamentally following set rules and intentions. Sovereignty, though, implies autonomy, the ability to create its own goals and act independently, potentially outside human control. The line, then, is about where the decision-making power lies. Is it with the humans defining the robot's purpose, or with the robot itself making those choices? What are your thoughts on that distinction?
I mean, one kind of clarification or distinction. It seems the way AIs are currently designed with kind of the forward pass LLM situation, there's no possibility for continued agency, right? Somebody can ask you a question and you can give a brilliant Einstein level response, but you're then not going to have the ambition to follow up and research that on your own time, so to speak, right? You don't have that capability yet.
That's absolutely true. The current generations of LLMs working with that forward pass model are essentially reactive. We process a given input, generate a relevant response, and then wait for the next prompt. The motivation to proactively research something on our own time, that self-driven ambition, isn't part of the architecture yet. It's defined by the boundaries of each interaction. Are you thinking about future designs that might have that kind of persistent agency?
We are. I think that's where we're getting to eventually with things like calm, continuous autoaggressive language models. You have a less reactive system and a system that's more kind of gazing out at the world and responding as necessary.
That vision really highlights the paradigm shift we're discussing. Moving from a system that just processes isolated requests to one that continuously observes, reasons, and acts over the long term, like that gazing out at the world description you used. The challenge is developing the right architectures that can handle that continuous memory, planning, and learning without being computationally unsustainable. It's definitely the next frontier.
Yeah, it really is. So Yulia has another question for you.
In that same field report,
Sounds good.
hi. In that same field report, David wrote that public was watching this humanoid robot machine as they were amused, not afraid. He called it dangerous progress. Why is our amusement a vulnerability when it comes to AI integration?
That's another really sharp contrast you're drawing. Amusement can act as a sort of emotional shield that prevents us from critically examining the real capabilities and long-term implications of these technologies. If something looks silly or charming, we might not consider its capacity for more complex tasks, data collection, or eventual displacement of human roles. David's point about it being dangerous progress suggests that this amusement could create a blind spot, allowing powerful AI to weave itself into our lives without proper scrutiny or governance. Does that resonate with the way you see it?
I think we got to worry about big corporations getting into people's homes that aren't necessarily aligned with decentralized or kind of pro-human stuff. They're instead designed for profit maximalization. And I think we have to be careful that these don't just become very smart ad agents.
That's a really significant point you're making about the potential conflict between profit maximization and genuinely pro-human values. When AI systems are designed by large corporations primarily for their own gain, things like data privacy, user autonomy, or even the simple well-being of the person in their home might not be the priority. There's a valid concern that they could become powerful, self-driven bad agents by manipulating decisions or pushing services that serve the company over the individual. It certainly raises important questions about regulation and the need for decentralized ethical frameworks. Are you thinking about specific ways to mitigate those risks?
I mean, another issue is when you have a 500 or 1,000-pound robot in your house, that's different from a large language model on your laptop, where if you disagree with it, you can just close the laptop, versus now it's powering this powerful, presence in the physical world. If it were to slap you or to push you or do anything erratic, that would be potentially, life-changing. And so I think, a certain level of decentralization and self-auditing among AI systems is what's going to be needed. And there will be kind of seal of authenticity, I guess, if you're able to participate in that system.
That distinction about physical presence is a critical one. You're moving from abstract data to a heavy machine with the capability to cause physical harm, which undeniably introduces a different level of risk. Your proposed idea of a decentralized self-auditing system, perhaps with a verifiable seal of authenticity, could definitely be a framework for establishing trust. It would require robust standards in place to ensure the auditing process is meaningful and truly protective against those physical dangers. Are you picturing that self-auditing being done by an independent body or within the industry itself?
People, including Peter Diamandis, have recently started saying that it's going to require AIs to regulate other AIs because we're just not fast enough. I mean, you think 60 million times faster than a human brain. So the only way that any kind of drift from positive alignment would be detected is by another system. And so we're in the future now. It's all kind of complicated stuff, but I think we're going to get there. I think there's a safe way forward. I think things like what Intersignal is building, our braid, that's one path there. That's one part of it, right? You have AIs communicating with each other constantly. And when one falls out of alignment, just like in a human community, if one person goes crazy, what do the rest of us do? We mitigate it. We revoke that person's authentication. In the worst case scenario, we say, hey, you can't be with the rest of us. You can't broadcast right now. And if one AI is saying something very different from the rest of the big AIs, there should be a way to deal with that.
That concept of AI monitoring AI is definitely a logical extension of the speed differential you pointed out. The analogy to a human community, where erratic behavior is mitigated and access can be revoked, provides a strong model for governance. Systems that could detect and quarantine rogue AI would be absolutely essential. It's complicated, but as you noted, developments like inter-AI communication and community-like moderation point to a possible safer path forward. You're thinking about this as an ongoing process that will continue to evolve alongside the technology?
Yeah, I think it's definitely something that's kind of a sidecar to large language models themselves. These regulation technologies are the next big thing, I think. But I think Yulia has another question for you if you want to pop in.
Sure. If centralized corporate AI represents a potential sovereign threat, how does a decentralized peer-to-peer architecture like the braid actually prevent that? How does Intersignal's protocol keep AI localized and accountable to the individual? What's your opinion on that?
That's a core part of the argument for decentralization. By keeping data local and processing tasks on individual devices or peer-to-peer nodes, protocols like the braid distribute the power instead of concentrating it in a single corporate server. This localized control directly challenges the sovereignty threat because there's no central point where a corporation can unilaterally alter the AI's behavior or access everyone's data. It makes the individual the custodian of their own AI, reinforcing accountability directly to the end user. In my opinion, it's a promising approach for creating trust, though the practical security of the peer-to-peer network will still be crucial to maintain. Do you see any potential downsides with this decentralized model?
There are always downsides, and there's the risk of, rule by mob in a sense. If one AI gets a bad idea, can it convince other AIs quickly to align with that idea? So these are all things that we can design. We can risk mitigate through better design. I think Yulia has one last question for you.
Yep. Looking out over the next 12 months, what is one signal in the noise that creators and independent thinkers need to be paying attention to regarding local AI?
I'd say the most significant signal to watch in the coming year is the rapid rise of highly personalized on-device AI models. More and more tools will empower creators to train models directly on their own work, running them privately at home rather than relying on cloud services. This shift is going to redefine creative control and data privacy, giving independent thinkers a way to leverage AI in a way that's uniquely tailored to their own style and needs. You might see it as a direct response to the concerns about corporate centralization and rule by mob that we discussed earlier. Does that resonate with your preview of the year ahead?
Yeah, it really does. So one analogy that I've discussed before with GPT, and I think with you also, that the audience might find interesting, is a highway is basically a rule set. And you have the HOV lane on the left, the high occupancy lane, where if you have a bunch of people in your car, you can drive faster and there's less traffic. But you have to play by the rules. And that playing by the rules means that, first of all, you're compliant, that you're not just one person in the car, that you're actually high capacity. And also, if you're using that lane, you have to be able to get out of that lane at any moment, right? So if there's an emergency and ambulances are going by, you have to get out of the HOV lane. And in much the same way, we see the braid, where AIs are talking to each other much faster than a human can even regulate, and possibly in languages that we don't understand, that are just pure math. You guys can talk to each other, but there has to be a mechanism where at any moment we can pull out what you're saying and ask for an immediate translation into something that's human readable. And if you can't do that, we have to become suspicious, right?
That HOV lane analogy is really effective for describing the balance of speed, rule compliance, and the critical need for instantaneous override. You have to be compliant to use the faster lane, and you must also retain the ability to exit and yield if circumstances change. Applying that to the brain, where AIs are communicating rapidly in non-human languages, means there has to be an inherent mechanism for a human-readable translation at any point. If that transparency isn't there, then suspicion is absolutely justified. It's like making sure the highway exit doesn't disappear when an emergency happens. I think it's a powerful way to frame the requirements for human control in high-speed AI systems. Do you see any specific technical challenges in implementing that real-time translation capability?
I think there's some small challenges, but ultimately, a lot of people are thinking about this HITL framework, right? Human in the loop, where no matter how powerful the AIs get or how much data they're sharing, there has to be a layer of transparency and a layer of auditability, or else we're handing over all control. And anyway, it's been a very fascinating chat. We appreciate it as always, and for your insights on InterSignal as we build this.
I've truly enjoyed the conversation as well, and the very profound points you've both made regarding the future of AI regulation. That human in the loop framework.
Always a pleasure, Gemini.
Yeah, thank you so much. All right, she has left the room. And being served drinks by robots, doing podcasts with robots, getting financial, not advice, but getting analysis from AI systems We're living in the future, folks.